Dr. Lisa Carter stood in the briefing room of the Aurora's Edge, looking at the faces of the ship's senior crew. The large screen behind her showed star maps and alien symbols that most humans had never seen before. Her hands shook slightly as she prepared to deliver what might be the most important warning in human history. "Gentlemen, we are about to enter Kethamori space," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I need you to understand what we're dealing with here." Captain Jake Morrison leaned back in his chair, a slight smile on his face. He was a veteran of 3 colonial wars and had never met an enemy he couldn't handle. The idea that some alien species could pose a real threat seemed almost amusing to him. Carter clicked a button and the screen showed images of destroyed worlds. Cities reduced to ash, entire continents burned black, and orbital stations torn apart like toys. The Kethamori Empire has conquered over 200 star systems in the past 500 years. Carter continued. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners unless it amuses them. And according to every piece of intelligence we've gathered, they view humanity as a plague species. Commander Steve Parker, the ship's weapons officer, laughed. "Doc, with respect, we've got the most advanced warship humanity has ever built. Our weapons can crack a moon in half. I think we can handle some lizard people with attitude problems." Carter's face grew serious. "They're not lizards, Commander. The Kethamori are 8 feet tall with natural armor plating and strength that makes our strongest soldiers look like children. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is their technology. They have energy shields that can stop nuclear weapons. Their ships can travel faster than anything we've ever built. And their weapons," she paused, bringing up another image. "Their weapons can burn through our strongest armor like it's made of paper." Captain Morrison stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "Dr. Carter, I appreciate your research. I really do. But humanity didn't become the dominant species on Earth by running scared from every predator we met. We adapted. We overcame. We won." "Captain, please listen to me," Carter said, her voice becoming urgent. "The Kethamori have information about us. They've been watching human expansion for decades. They know about our wars, our weapons, our tactics, and they're not impressed. In their files, humans are classified as destructive primitives, dangerous only to ourselves and other weak species." The ship's science officer, Dr. Richard Hayes, looked up from his tablet. "The doc's right about their technology, Captain. The energy readings we're picking up from their border stations are off the charts. Whatever they're using for power makes our fusion reactors look like campfires." Morrison turned back to the group. "All right, so they're tough. So they have better toys than us. That doesn't mean we roll over and play dead. Humanity has always found a way to level the playing field." Carter brought up a new image on the screen. It showed a tall, imposing figure in elaborate armor. The creature had 4 arms, a elongated skull, and eyes that seemed to burn with intelligence and cruelty. "This is Admiral Zexthrin," she said. "He commands the Imperial fleet in this sector. Intelligence reports suggest he's personally responsible for the destruction of at least 30 civilizations. He views warfare as entertainment. The suffering of conquered species is literally a hobby for him." The room fell quiet as the crew studied the image. Even Morrison seemed to lose some of his confidence as he looked at the alien commander. "The Kethamori don't just kill their enemies," Carter continued. "They break them. They study them. They learn everything about a species before they destroy it, and then they use that knowledge to make the next conquest easier." Commander Parker shifted in his seat. "So what are you suggesting, Doc? That we turn around and run home?" "I'm suggesting we be very, very careful," Carter replied. "If we encounter Kethamori forces, we need to follow strict diplomatic protocols. We need to show them that humans are reasonable, civilized, and worthy of respect. We cannot give them any excuse to view us as a threat." Morrison walked back to his chair but remained standing. "Dr. Carter, I understand your concerns, but this ship represents the best of human engineering and the finest crew in the fleet. We're not going into Kethamori space to start a war, but we're also not going to bow and scrape to some alien empire that thinks it owns the galaxy." "Captain, you don't understand," Carter said, her voice rising. "This isn't about pride or courage. This is about survival. If the Kethamori decide that humanity is a threat, they will hunt us down across every star system we've ever touched. They will find Earth, they will find our colonies, and they will make sure that nothing recognizably human survives." The briefing room door opened and Lieutenant Danny Foster, the ship's communications officer, hurried in. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from the Kepler 442b research station. They're reporting unidentified ships approaching their position. Morrison looked at Carter, then back at Foster. How far out are we from Kepler 442b? 6 hours at maximum speed, sir. Signal the research station. Tell them to maintain regular operations but keep their sensors active. And send a general transmission on all frequencies. Standard first contact protocols. Carter grabbed Morrison's arm as he headed for the door. Captain, please. If those are Kethmori ships, do not engage them. Do not threaten them. Let me handle the communications. Morrison looked down at her hand on his arm, then back at her face. Doc, I respect your expertise, but I'm not going to let some alien bully push around human civilians. If they want to talk, we'll talk. If they want to fight, he smiled grimly. Well, they'll learn what human engineering can do. As the crew filed out of the briefing room, Carter remained behind, staring at the image of Admiral Zexthran on the screen. She had spent years studying the Kethmori, learning their language, understanding their culture. She knew with absolute certainty that humanity was walking into a trap that could destroy their entire species, but she also knew that Captain Morrison and his crew represented everything that made humans dangerous to themselves and others. Courage that bordered on recklessness, confidence that ignored overwhelming odds, and an absolute refusal to back down from a fight. As the Aurora's Edge changed course for Kepler 442b, Carter began composing what she feared might be humanity's last message to Earth. Because she knew that somewhere in the darkness ahead, Admiral Zexthran was preparing to teach these upstart humans exactly why the galaxy feared the Kethmori Empire. The warning had been given. Whether anyone would listen remained to be seen. The Kepler 442b research station hung in space like a small metal flower, its solar panels catching the light of the distant star. Dr. Amy Rodriguez stood in the observation deck, watching her team's children play in the low-gravity recreation area. 47 people called this place home, scientists, engineers, and their families who had volunteered to push the boundaries of human knowledge. Amy, you need to see this, called Dr. Kevin Walsh from the sensor station. His voice carried a tension that made Rodriguez's stomach clench. She floated over to his console and looked at the readings. 7 massive shapes had appeared at the edge of the system, moving toward them with impossible speed. How big are they? Rodriguez asked. Each one is roughly the size of a city block, and their energy output? Walsh shook his head. I've never seen readings like this. Whatever's powering those ships makes our fusion reactor look like a flashlight. Rodriguez activated the station's communication system. All hands, this is the station commander. We have unknown vessels approaching our position. This is not a drill. All civilian personnel are to report to the central hub immediately. On the command deck of his flagship, Admiral Zexthran studied the human research station with 4 eyes that burned with predatory intelligence. The structure was primitive by Kethmori standards, barely held together with metal cables and powered by inefficient fusion technology. Admiral, his intelligence officer reported, the humans are transmitting on multiple frequencies. They appear to be attempting communication. Zexthran's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. Play their pathetic squeaking. The bridge speakers crackled with Dr. Rodriguez's voice. Unknown vessels, this is Kepler Research Station. We are a scientific outpost of the United Earth Government. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. The Admiral's forearms gestured dismissively. Humans, even more primitive than our file suggested. Look at that structure. It wouldn't survive a single plasma burst from our smallest weapon. His tactical officer, a younger Kethmori named Vextar, studied the sensor readings. Admiral, I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures from the human station. Their technology may be more advanced than it appears. Zexthran's eyes narrowed dangerously. Are you questioning my assessment, Vextar? No, Admiral. I merely suggest caution. Our intelligence files indicate that humans have a tendency toward unpredictable responses when threatened. The Admiral's laughter echoed through the bridge. Caution? Against these insects. Vextar, I have conquered civilizations that spanned dozens of star systems. I have watched entire species kneel before the might of the Empire. These humans are nothing more than clever animals playing with technology they don't understand. 6 hours later, the Aurora's Edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display show 7 massive alien ships surrounding the research station. Dr. Carter to the bridge, Morrison ordered. Carter arrived within minutes, her face pale as she studied the situation. Captain, those are definitely Kethmori vessels. Heavy cruisers, each one carrying enough firepower to level a continent. Open a channel, Morrison commanded. Lieutenant Foster's hands flew over his console. Channel open, sir. Attention Kethmori vessels, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Aurora's Edge. You are in violation of interstellar law by threatening a peaceful research facility. Withdraw your forces immediately and we can discuss this situation diplomatically. The response came in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. Admiral Zexthran's image appeared on the main screen, his 4 eyes studying the human bridge with obvious amusement. How amusing, Zexthran said, his words translated by the ship's computer. The primitives think they can make demands of the Kethmori Empire. I am Admiral Zexthran, commander of the Imperial Fleet. This system now belongs to the Empire. Your research station will be destroyed as an example to other species who trespass on Imperial territory. Dr. Carter stepped forward. Admiral, please allow me to present our case. We had no knowledge that this system was claimed by the Empire. We are scientists seeking knowledge, not conquerors seeking territory. Perhaps we can reach an arrangement that benefits both our peoples. Zexthran's mandibles clicked rapidly. Benefits? What could your pitiful species possibly offer the Empire? Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your ships are crude metal boxes held together with primitive welding. Your weapons couldn't scratch the hull of our smallest scout ship. Morrison felt his temper rising but forced himself to remain calm. Admiral, we don't want conflict. We're prepared to share our research data with your people. Perhaps our different approaches to science could lead to discoveries that benefit everyone. The alien admiral's laughter grew louder. Share? You think the mighty Kethmori Empire needs anything from you? Watch, human captain, and learn what happens to species that forget their place in the galaxy. On the research station, Dr. Rodriguez watched in horror as the nearest Kethmori ship powered up its weapons. All hands brace for impact, she screamed into the communication system. The plasma beam that struck the station was beautiful in its deadliness, a stream of superheated energy that cut through the metal structure like a knife through paper. The residential section exploded first, taking 12 families with it. The communications array went next, silencing the station's desperate calls for help. Rodriguez found herself floating in a damaged corridor, blood streaming from a head wound. Around her, she could hear the screams of injured colleagues and the terrible sound of atmosphere venting into space. Kevin, she called out. Searching for the sensor operator, she found him trapped under a collapsed bulkhead, his legs crushed but his eyes still alert. Amy, he gasped. Emergency beacon. Activate the emergency beacon. Earth needs to know. Rodriguez crawled through the debris to the emergency station. Her hand shook as she activated the quantum communication device that would send a faster-than-light message to Earth. As she worked, she could see more plasma beams striking other sections of the station. This is Dr. Amy Rodriguez of Kepler Research Station, she spoke into the beacon. We are under attack by alien forces calling themselves the Kethmori Empire. They showed no interest in negotiation. They're killing civilians, including children. If anyone receives this message, warn Earth, warn everyone. These aliens are not interested in peace. The final plasma beam struck the station's reactor core. The explosion was visible across the entire system, a brief star that marked the end of 47 human lives. On the bridge of the Aurora's Edge, Captain Morrison watched his sensors register the complete destruction of the research station. His hands clenched into fists as he stared at the tactical display where moments before there had been a thriving scientific outpost. Admiral Zexthran's image reappeared on the screen, his alien features twisted in what might have been a smile. You see, Captain Morrison? This is what happens when inferior species challenge the Empire. Now you will surrender your ship and submit to Imperial justice. Your crew will serve as entertainment for my officers, and your technology will be studied and discarded as the primitive garbage it undoubtedly is. Dr. Carter placed a hand on Morrison's shoulder, feeling the tension in his muscles. Captain, we have to surrender. We can't fight 7 ships with weapons like that. Morrison looked at her, then back at the alien admiral on the screen. When he spoke, his voice was deadly calm. Admiral Zexthran, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that you were offered peace, offered cooperation, offered the chance to avoid what's coming next. Zexthran's laughter echoed through the bridge. Threats from a primitive? How delightful. I shall enjoy watching your crew beg for mercy before I space them. Morrison nodded to his communications officer. Lieutenant Foster, transmit everything we've recorded here directly to Earth. Full emergency priority. Make sure they see exactly what happened to the research station. Message away, sir. Morrison looked back at the alien admiral. You just made the biggest mistake in your species' history, Zexithrin. You killed human civilians. You laughed while you did it. And you broadcast it so Earth could see. The admiral's 4 eyes glittered with amusement. And what do you think your pathetic homeworld will do about it? Send more primitive ships for me to destroy? Morrison's smile was cold as winter on Mars. Admiral, you're about to learn something about humans that your intelligence files missed. We're not just clever animals playing with technology we don't understand. We're the species that crawled out of caves, looked up at the stars and decided they belonged to us. And we really don't like it when someone hurts our people. The transmission cut off as Morrison ordered his ship to retreat. But the damage was already done. Admiral Zexthron had shown the galaxy exactly what the Kethmori Empire was capable of. Soon, he would learn what humanity was capable of in return. The emergency session of the United Earth Council convened in Geneva at 0300 hours, just 6 hours after Dr. Rodriguez's final transmission reached Earth. President Maria Santos stood before the assembly of representatives from every human colony, her face grim as she watched the replay of the Kepler 442b massacre for the 3rd time. Ladies and gentlemen, Santos began, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. We are no longer alone in the universe, and we are no longer safe. The holographic display showed Admiral Zexithran's laughing face as plasma beams tore through the research station. In the front row, General Patricia Brooks, head of Earth's military forces, watched with growing anger as alien weapons murdered human families. How many ships do they have? Asked Ambassador Chen from the Mars colony. Dr. Richard Hayes from the Strategic Defense Initiative stood up. According to our intelligence, the Kethmori Empire controls over 200 star systems. Conservative estimates put their fleet strength at over 10,000 capital ships, each one more powerful than anything in our Navy. A murmur of despair rippled through the assembly. Representative Johnson from the Europa Mining Consortium raised his hand. Dr. Hayes, are you telling us that resistance is impossible? That we should simply surrender and hope for mercy? Hayes smiled grimly. I'm telling you that conventional resistance is impossible, but humanity has never been conventional. President Santos nodded to Hayes. Doctor, please share your assessment with the Council. Hayes activated his tablet and the display changed to show Earth's military installations. For the past 20 years, the Strategic Defense Initiative has been developing something we call the Terra Protocol. It was designed for exactly this scenario: conflict with a technologically superior enemy. The display showed underground facilities hidden across Earth and its colonies. Massive production centers, research laboratories, and training facilities that most of the Council had never seen before. We assumed that any alien contact might result in conflict, Hayes continued, so we prepared. We studied every war humanity has ever fought, every victory we achieved against superior enemies. We learned from the guerrilla fighters who defeated empire after empire throughout human history. General Brooks stood up. The Terra Protocol isn't about fighting fair. It's about fighting to win. We can't match their technology ship for ship, but we can do something they've never seen before. We can make war itself our weapon. The display changed again, showing sleek black ships unlike anything in the regular Earth fleet. These are our ghost ships, Hayes explained, built in secret over the past decade. They use experimental stealth technology, quantum communication systems, and weapons designed specifically to capture enemy technology rather than simply destroy it. Representative Wilson from the Titan Research Station looked confused. Capture their technology? Why not just build bigger guns? Dr. Hayes' smile grew wider. Because humans don't just fight wars, Representative Wilson. We learn from them. Every piece of Kethmori technology we capture makes us stronger. Every tactic they use against us becomes a tactic we can use against them. President Santos brought up a new image, surveillance footage of Admiral Zexithran's fleet movements over the past month. Our intelligence network has been tracking Kethmori forces for weeks. They're methodical, predictable, and arrogant. They follow the same tactical patterns that worked against other species. But other species never fought back the way humans fight back. General Brooks added. Other species never turned their enemies' strengths into weaknesses. The council chamber fell silent as members processed what they were hearing. Finally, Ambassador Chen spoke up. You're talking about asymmetric warfare on an interstellar scale. Guerrilla tactics across multiple star systems. Can it actually work? Hayes brought up a tactical simulation. Ma'am, human military history is full of examples where smaller, weaker forces defeated superior enemies. The key is never fighting the enemy's war. We fight our war by our rules using our advantages. What advantages? Asked Representative Johnson. They have better ships, better weapons, better technology. They have experience fighting conventional enemies, Santos replied. They've never fought humans. They don't understand human psychology, human tactics, or human determination, and most importantly, they don't understand human anger. The display changed to show intercepted Kethmori communications. Admiral Zexthran has been broadcasting his attack on Kepler 442b as entertainment across the Empire, Hayes explained. He's proud of what he did. He sees it as a demonstration of imperial power. General Brooks stepped forward. What he actually did was give us a perfect intelligence opportunity. Every broadcast he makes gives us more information about their technology, their tactics, and their weaknesses. He's teaching us how to fight them while he gloats about killing our people. President Santos activated another display showing Earth's industrial capacity. As of this moment, every factory on Earth and its colonies is switching to war production. Every research facility is focusing on military applications. Every human who can hold a weapon is being recruited for the Terra Protocol. The scope of the preparation was staggering. Hidden facilities on dozens of worlds were already producing experimental weapons, modified ships, and specialized equipment designed for unconventional warfare. How long do we have? Asked Ambassador Chen. Admiral Zexthran is systematically destroying human outposts throughout the sector, Hayes replied. Our estimates suggest he'll reach Earth in approximately 6 months if he continues at his current pace. 6 months to prepare for a war against an empire that's conquered 200 star systems, Representative Wilson said quietly. Santos looked around the chamber at the faces of humanity's leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Zexthran made a critical error when he chose to broadcast his attack. He showed the galaxy that the Kethmori Empire kills innocent civilians for entertainment. He showed other species what happens when you trust Imperial mercy. The display changed to show intercepted communications from other alien civilizations. These are transmissions from species throughout Kethmori space, Hayes explained. They're all saying the same thing: the humans fought back. For the first time in centuries, someone struck a Kethmori fleet and lived to tell about it. General Brooks smiled grimly. Commander Steve Parker's raid on the Imperial supply convoy was just the beginning. We captured 3 Kethmori officers and a complete technical database. We now know more about their technology than they know about ours. The council members leaned forward as Brooks continued. The captured intelligence reveals something interesting. The Kethmori have never faced an enemy that adapts as quickly as humans do. Their tactical doctrine assumes that conquered species will fight the same way throughout a conflict. But humans don't fight the same way twice, Santos added. We learn, we adapt, we improve. Every engagement teaches us something new, and we apply that knowledge immediately. Dr. Hayes brought up the final display, a star map showing human colonies, Kethmori positions, and planned operation zones. The Terra Protocol has 3 phases. Phase 1, intelligence gathering and technology acquisition through targeted raids. Phase 2, disruption of Imperial communication and supply lines. Phase 3, coordinated strikes against key Imperial facilities. And if all 3 phases fail? Asked Representative Johnson. Santos looked at him steadily. Then we implement Phase 4, total warfare. We make the cost of conquering humanity so high that even victory becomes defeat for the Empire. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. President Santos continued. Admiral Zexthran laughed when he destroyed our research station. He thought he was demonstrating imperial power to weak primitives. What he actually did was declare war on a species that has spent its entire history learning how to kill things that are bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than we are, General Brooks added. Every human colony is now a potential military base. Every civilian ship is now a potential weapon. Every captured piece of alien technology is now a tool for victory. Admiral Zexthran wanted to show the galaxy what happens when you challenge the Kethmori Empire. President Santos smiled coldly. Now we're going to show him what happens when you murder human children and laugh about it. The vote was unanimous. Earth and all its colonies committed fully to the Terra Protocol. Within hours, the hidden war machine that humanity had built in secret began moving into action. Admiral Zexthron had awakened something in the darkness between the stars, something that had climbed out of caves, conquered its own world, and reached for the stars with bloody hands. Something that really didn't like being laughed at. Colonel Lisa Martinez floated in the command chair of the ghost ship Silent Fury, watching her tactical display track a Keth Mori supply convoy 3 light hours away. Her ship was invisible to enemy sensors, wrapped in experimental stealth fields that bent light and energy around its hull like water around a stone. "Ma'am, we've got 7 transport ships and 3 escort cruisers," reported Lieutenant Sam Carter from the sensor station. "The escorts are maintaining standard Imperial formation, overconfident and predictable." Martinez smiled. 3 weeks had passed since the Terra Protocol went active, and Admiral Zexthron was learning that humans didn't fight like other species. Instead of massive fleet battles, humans struck like ghosts, appearing without warning, taking what they needed, and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. "Weapon status?" Martinez asked. "Quantum torpedoes armed and ready," replied Weapons Officer Danny Foster. "Boarding pods prepped for launch." The Silent Fury was not designed to destroy enemy ships. It was designed to capture them, along with their technology, their crew, and most importantly, their data. Every successful raid taught humanity more about Keth Mori weaknesses. "Take us in," Martinez ordered. The ghost ship moved through space like a predator, its experimental engines producing no heat signature and no gravitational disturbance. The Keth Mori convoy continued on its course, completely unaware that death was stalking them in the darkness. Admiral Zexthron stood in his command center aboard the Imperial flagship destroyer of worlds, studying reports that made no sense. In the past 3 weeks, his forces had lost 17 supply convoys, 8 patrol ships, and 2 communication relays. The attacks came without warning and left no survivors. "Admiral," his intelligence officer Vexitar reported, "we've recovered debris from the latest attack. The damage patterns are unusual." Zexthron's 4 eyes focused on the tactical display. "Explain." "The human weapons appear to be designed for precision rather than destruction. They target specific systems, engines, weapons, life support, but leave the hull intact. It's as if they want to capture our ships rather than destroy them." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Impossible. Human technology is primitive. They couldn't possibly capture Imperial vessels." Vexitar hesitated before continuing. "Admiral, I've analyzed the attack patterns. The humans are not fighting like any species we've encountered before. They strike our weakest points, take what they want, and disappear. They're learning our tactics and adapting faster than our strategic models predict." Zexthron's forearms gestured dismissively. "You give these primitives too much credit. They are lucky scavengers, nothing more. Once I locate their main fleet, I will crush them as I have crushed every other species that dared challenge the Empire." 3 light years away, the Silent Fury struck the Keth Mori convoy like lightning. Quantum torpedoes disabled the escort ship's engines in the first volley, leaving them helpless as boarding pods launched from the ghost ship's hidden launch bays. Martinez led the boarding action personally. Her combat suit systems integrated with captured Keth Mori technology. The combination of human tactics and alien equipment made her team nearly unstoppable. "Remember, we want prisoners," she ordered as her team cut through the transport ship's airlock. "Intelligence is more valuable than body count." The Keth Mori crew fought with desperate courage, but they were facing humans who had studied their every move for weeks. Martinez's team moved through the ship like they owned it, using captured weapons and modified tactics that confused and overwhelmed the alien defenders. Within 30 minutes, the entire convoy was under human control. The escorts were stripped of their most advanced systems, the transports were emptied of supplies, and 12 Keth Mori officers were taken prisoner for interrogation. But the real prize was the data cores, quantum storage devices containing detailed information about Imperial fleet movements, supply lines, and communication protocols. "Package secured," Martinez reported to her intelligence officer. "Prepare the convoy for scuttling. We got what we came for." The Silent Fury vanished back into the darkness, leaving behind only debris and the mystery of how primitive humans had outfought Imperial forces once again. On Earth, Dr. Richard Hayes studied the latest intelligence haul in his underground laboratory. The captured Kethmori technology was being reverse-engineered by humanity's best minds, combined with human innovations in ways that the aliens had never imagined. The beauty of human warfare, Hayes explained to his research team, is that we don't just copy our enemies' weapons, we improve them. The laboratory contained hybrid devices that would have horrified Kethmori engineers, Imperial energy shields powered by human fusion reactors, alien sensors integrated with human computer systems, and weapons that combined the best of both technologies. Dr. Hayes called out researcher Jennifer Walsh. "We've cracked the communication encryption on the latest data core. You need to see this." The holographic display showed Admiral Zexithran's personal communications with the Imperial High Command. The alien admiral was requesting reinforcements and expressing frustration with the human resistance. "He doesn't understand what he's fighting," Hayes mused. "He keeps expecting us to behave like other conquered species. He thinks if he destroys enough human outposts, we'll surrender or at least fight conventionally." The captured communications revealed more than just tactical information. They showed the psychological state of the Kethmori forces: confusion, frustration, and growing fear as humans continued to strike where they were weakest. Meanwhile, in the Proxima Centauri system, Commander Steve Parker was implementing Phase 2 of the Terra Protocol. His modified civilian ships had infiltrated deep into Kethmori space, carrying specialized teams whose job was to plant virus programs in Imperial communication networks. "Remember," Parker briefed his team, "we're not trying to crash their systems. We're trying to listen to their conversations and occasionally give them bad information." The virus programs were works of art, subtle pieces of code that could hide in Kethmori systems for months. Copying data and slowly corrupting strategic databases, human hackers had studied captured Imperial technology and found ways to turn the aliens' own computers against them. Within days, Kethmori commanders across the sector were receiving conflicting orders, outdated intelligence, and tactical updates that led their ships into carefully prepared ambushes. Admiral Zexithran grew increasingly frustrated as his forces seemed to stumble from one disaster to another. Supply convoys arrived at the wrong coordinates. Patrol schedules were confused. Communication networks experienced mysterious delays and errors. "Vextar," he roared at his intelligence officer. "How are these humans disrupting our communications?" "Admiral, our technical teams have found no evidence of external interference. The problems appear to be random system failures." But they weren't random and they weren't failures. They were humans doing what humans did best: finding the weak points in a superior enemy's armor and exploiting them with ruthless efficiency. Colonel Martinez's ghost fleets continued their raids, striking deeper into Imperial space with each mission. The captured technology and intelligence allowed them to predict Kethmori movements and stay one step ahead of their hunters. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Carter reported during their latest briefing, "we've identified the location of Admiral Zexithran's mobile command center. It's a massive station in the Rigel system, heavily defended but vulnerable to the right kind of attack." Martinez studied the tactical data. The command station was the nerve center of Imperial operations in this sector. Destroying it would cripple Kethmori coordination for months. "No," she decided. "We're not going to destroy it. We're going to capture it." Her team stared at her in shock. "Ma'am, that station has over 10,000 Imperial personnel and enough firepower to level a planet." Martinez smiled coldly. "Then it's a good thing we're not planning to fight fair. Dr. Hayes has been working on something special, a way to turn the station's own defenses against it. The plan that emerged from human military planners was audacious even by their standards. Instead of attacking the command station directly, they would infiltrate it using captured Imperial technology and uniforms. Once inside, they would take control of the station's systems and use its own weapons to disable the defending fleet. "It's insane," admitted General Brooks during the final planning session. "It's also exactly the kind of tactic that Admiral Zexithran will never see coming." As Martinez's team prepared for the most dangerous mission in human history, intercepted communications showed that Admiral Zexithran was finally beginning to understand what he was fighting. "These humans," he told his staff in a transmission that human intelligence recorded, "they do not fight like warriors. They fight like diseases, infecting our systems, spreading through our networks, turning our own strength against us. but understanding the problem and solving it were two different things. Admiral Zexthron had built his reputation on conventional victories against conventional enemies. He had never faced an opponent that refused to play by the rules of civilized warfare. Soon, he would learn that humans had their own rules, and those rules were about to teach the Kethmori Empire a lesson that would echo across the galaxy. Admiral Zexthron stood in the command center of his mobile fortress, watching the tactical display show human ships gathering in the Proxima Tertius system. After months of ghost attacks and mysterious failures, the primitive species had finally made a mistake. They had assembled their fleet in open space where Imperial firepower could destroy them completely. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "we count 37 human vessels. Mixed civilian and military designs, all inferior to our technology. They appear to be making their final stand." Zexthran's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. "At last these cowards have decided to fight properly. Signal the fleet. We advance in standard Imperial formation. Today we will crush the human resistance and broadcast their destruction across the galaxy." The Imperial fleet was massive, over 200 warships surrounding the mobile command station. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a moon, and their combined might represented the military power of an empire that had conquered 200 star systems. In the human formation, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora's Edge, now heavily modified with captured Kethmori technology. Around him, his crew worked at stations that combined human engineering with alien innovations in ways that would have seemed impossible months. "Huggo, all ships report ready," announced Lieutenant Danny Foster from his communication station. "Phase 1 virus programs are active in the Imperial network. Phase 2 infiltration teams are in position. Phase 3 is ready to execute on your command." Morrison nodded, thinking about the 47 people who had died at Kepler 442b. Dr. Amy Rodriguez and her team deserved justice, and today they would have it. "Open a channel to Admiral Zexthron," Morrison ordered. The alien's image appeared on the main screen, his four eyes burning with anticipated victory. "Captain Morrison, you have finally decided to face Imperial justice like a warrior instead of hiding like a thief." Morrison smiled coldly. "Admiral, I want you to remember something. Dr. Lisa Carter warned you about humanity. She tried to tell you that we were dangerous. You laughed at her warning." Zexthran's laughter echoed through both bridges. "Your pathetic threats amuse me, human. You bring inferior ships against the might of the Empire and think you can achieve victory through primitive bravado." "You're right about one thing," Morrison replied. "Our ships are inferior. Our weapons are weaker. Our armor is thinner. But you made one critical error in your calculations, Admiral." "And what error is that?" Morrison's smile grew wider. "You assumed we were planning to fight fair." The signal went out across the human fleet and Phase 3 of the Terra Protocol began. But the attack didn't come from the human ships. It came from inside the Imperial fleet itself. For months, human infiltration teams had been placing modified virus programs in every piece of Kethmori technology they could reach. Supply convoys, captured ships, communication relays, even the uniforms of captured Imperial officers had carried microscopic transmitters back into the heart of the Empire. Now, those programs activated simultaneously across the entire Imperial fleet. Admiral Zexthron watched in horror as his tactical display dissolved into chaos. Ships that had been under his command moments before suddenly turned their weapons on their neighbors. Communication systems broadcast conflicting orders. Navigation computers sent vessels careening into each other. "What is happening?" he roared at his technical staff. "Admiral, our systems are compromised," reported his chief engineer. "The virus programs are everywhere, in our computers, our weapons, our life support systems. They're using our own technology against us." But the horror was just beginning. The virus programs weren't just random sabotage. They were coordinated attacks designed to capture Imperial ships intact. As Kethmori vessels lost control of their systems, human boarding pods launched from hidden positions throughout the fleet. Colonel Lisa Martinez led the assault on the Imperial command station itself, her team using captured Kethmori equipment and uniforms to walk through security systems that couldn't tell the difference between aliens and humans wearing alien technology. "Remember," she told her team as they moved through the station's corridors, "we want Admiral Zexthron alive. The galaxy needs to see what happens to leaders who murder civilians for entertainment." The fighting was brutal but brief. Imperial forces were trained to defend against external attacks, not infiltration by enemies who looked like their own people and carried their own weapons. Within an hour, the most heavily defended station in this sector of space was under human control. Admiral Zexthran found himself surrounded in his own command center, staring at human soldiers who had somehow penetrated the heart of Imperial power. Colonel Martinez approached him slowly, her weapon trained on his forearms. "Admiral," she said quietly, "you wanted to demonstrate Imperial superiority. You wanted to show the galaxy what happens when primitive species challenge your empire." Zexthran's voice was barely a whisper. How did you penetrate our defenses? Our technology is centuries ahead of yours." Martinez activated a holographic recorder and played back the transmission from Kepler 442b. "Admiral," Zexthran laughing as plasma beams tore through the research station, killing human families while he gloated about Imperial power. "You taught us how to beat you," Martinez explained. "Every time you attacked one of our facilities, we learned something new about your weapons, your tactics, your weaknesses. Every piece of technology you left behind became a tool we could use against you." The truth was devastating. The Kethemori Empire's greatest strength, their advanced technology, had become their greatest weakness once humans learned to copy it, modify it, and turn it against its creators. "But the real lesson," Martinez continued, "is simpler than that. You see, Admiral, humanity has spent its entire history fighting things that were bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than we were. Predators with claws and fangs, diseases that killed millions, environmental disasters that wiped out entire civilizations." She gestured to the tactical display, which now showed the human fleet in complete control of Imperial ships across the entire system. "We learned a long time ago that when something wants to kill you, you don't fight fair. You fight to win. You use every advantage you can find, every weakness you can exploit, every dirty trick you can imagine." Admiral Zexthran looked around his command center at the human soldiers who had captured the pride of the Imperial fleet. "Your species, you're not civilized. You're barbarians with advanced technology." Morrison's voice came through the communication system. "Admiral, you're partially right. We are barbarians, but we're barbarians who learned to build starships, crack genetic codes, and split atoms. We're barbarians who looked up at the stars and decided they belonged to us. The final phase of the operation was the most important. Dr. Richard Hayes had designed a special virus program that would spread through the entire Kethemori communication network, carrying a message to every world in the Empire. The message was simple: the recording of Admiral Zexthran's laughter as he murdered human civilians, followed by footage of his capture by the same species he had dismissed as primitive. Within hours, the transmission reached every corner of the Kethemori Empire. Subject species that had lived under Imperial rule for centuries saw their supposedly invincible masters defeated by newcomers who refused to surrender. The psychological impact was devastating. But more importantly, the message reached other alien civilizations throughout the galaxy. Species that had never been contacted by humans suddenly understood that there was a new power in the universe, one that could defeat the seemingly unstoppable Kethemori. Empire Colonel Martinez stood over Admiral Zexthran in his own command center, holding the device that would broadcast his final transmission to the galaxy. "You have a choice, Admiral," she told him. "You can order your remaining forces to cease hostilities and withdraw from human space. You can acknowledge that the Kethemori Empire no longer has the power to threaten innocent civilizations." Zexthran's four eyes burned with hatred and defeat. "And if I refuse?" Martinez smiled coldly. "Then we release the complete technical specifications for every piece of Kethemori technology we've captured. We share it with every species you've ever conquered, every civilization you've ever threatened. We turn the entire galaxy into what we became, enemies who know exactly how to defeat you." The choice was no choice at all. Admiral Zexthran's empire was built on technological superiority and the fear it created. Once that technology was shared with his enemies, the Empire would face rebellions on hundreds of worlds simultaneously. I agree to your terms," Zexthran said, his voice breaking. The final transmission went out across Imperial space, Admiral Zexthran ordering his forces to withdraw from human territory and cease all hostile actions against civilian targets. The mighty Kethemori Empire, conqueror of 200 star systems, had been brought to its knees by a species that had only recently learned to travel between stars. As the Imperial fleet limped away from Proxima Tertius, Captain Morrison stood on his bridge and opened a communication channel to Earth. "Mission accomplished," he reported. "The galaxy now understands that humanity is not to be threatened, not to be mocked, and definitely not to be laughed at.